Hi, my name is Linda Brownias. I'm working for Artisan Global Media, and I would like to start by thanking our hosts for inviting me to speak here today and tell you about Artologik Survey&Report. Artisan Global Media, we were founded in 1995 and we've been working with web-based software ever since. The company is privately owned 100% and the owners are still working within the company. We've got 17 employees, all working with Artologik software. So we do the development, the customer care, the support. We have the whole product in our hands. As you can see on the right side of the picture, we're located in Sweden, in Växjö. You can also see our office building. I'm sitting there today speaking to you. However, if you've heard that we have ice bears on the streets in Sweden, that is fake news. It's not true. Artologik software has been sold in over, I would say, 30 countries around the world, over 1,000 times. Been sold to big organizations, small ones, both public and private companies. Survey&Report is used for e-voting, but since it's a survey tool, it's also used for instance, course evaluations and market surveys and many other types of surveys. It's been used for e-voting by, for instance, Linnaeus University and the Mälardalen University in Sweden. Linnaeus has used it for election of university boards and faculty boards. They did that 3 years ago, and they're going to do that this year again. So this is what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to talk about the voting, of course, from the voter's perspective, about the ballot design, which is very easy with our software. The tallying, of course, talk about security, talk about the licensing, and at the end also mention the election cost. Starting off with voting then. So what does the voter do? Well, first of all, the voter receives a link to the election. He receives a voter ID and a one-time password, and you can send it to them either via an email or via post. Secondly, the voter then logs in to the election. They can use any type of browser, and they can also use a phone or a tablet to do this. They log in with their user ID and their password. Then they cast their vote as number 3, you can see here. They cast their vote. First they make their selection, of course, and they have to confirm that they consent that their vote is casted. You can see that on the bottom right. Now the voting is complete. It's not possible for the voter to vote separate time. Well, you could allow that, but normally you wouldn't. This way guarantee you only have one vote per voter and that no one else can vote. That is not a registered voter, of course. The voter can, however, try to log back in. If he does that, he will receive a message telling him that his vote has been stored. So he's aware of this. Registration and authentication of voters. Yeah, well, how are the voters registered? You, as an administrator, you can add them manually, of course, in the system. You can also import them via a file. Could be an Excel file, or text file, whatever you have. But you can also import them via user directory integration, if you wish. As mentioned before, only registered people can cast their vote, and only once. The authentication is done via this individual ID, the voter ID, and the one-time password. That can be done automatically if you wish. If you send the link via an email, you can embed the username and the password in the link. As an option, you can also use authentication via LDAP and SAML2. Moving on to talk a little bit about the ballot design, which is very easy with Survey&Report. First of all, just some examples. What could the ballot look like for the voter? Well, on the left here, you see a radio option where you can just choose one of the candidates. On the right side, you have a matrix. You can choose one of these candidates or multiple yes, no, or neither for each option. Here you have another type, multiple selection. That lets you say, okay, choose 2, no more than no less out of these 10 candidates or however many you have. On the right side, you see another possibility, and that is if you want to use it for nominating other candidates. It could be pre-election. Of course, you could use a text question for that. But let's say you have a database with 1,000 people that could be possible candidates. Well, if you list them, people will probably just vote for the first 2 or 3 or 10. So with this system, you can force them to search for the candidate that they want to cast their vote for. That's just some of the examples of the type of ballots that you can create. Here you can see the administration side of it. It's very simple to create a ballot with Survey&Report. You have 27 different question types to choose between. You just saw some of them. You can add different settings to just make it match your requirements. You can, for instance, use our conditions, which I talk about here on the screen. The conditions let you decide which of the voters sees which questions, because maybe you have some of the voters from a specific region or something else that should have one additional question to vote for. Kind of having 2 ballots in one in that case. You also, with this system, have the possibility to print paper ballots. This is an additional function. We call it a plugin. That way you can let half of your voters vote on paper and half of them vote online, for instance. The election is still just one election. The design is, of course, also important, I think. You can design it on your own, well, your administrators, just any way you want it. The colors you want, the corporate logo, any type of design you need. You can add an introductory text, a video, a picture, so you have the design in your hand. If you want to have an election in several countries, or at least amongst people who speak different languages, well, that's absolutely possible with this program. You have the program itself available in 5 languages. It's Swedish, if you speak it, English, German, French, and Spanish. But the ballot itself, you can translate to over 60 languages. You can see it here on the bottom left. On the left side, you have the original text, the first text you enter. And on the right side, you can translate to the other language or other languages. You can use automatic translation here as well, if you wish. The texts in the program are also customizable. For instance, on the right side here, you can see you can change the text, the button you click to cast your vote, and stuff like that. Moving on to see a little bit about the tallying then. You can keep track of how many people have voted in real time. You can see that in the table on your left here. You can also, if you allow it, see who has voted. You can see a table here on the right side where you see all the voters. So it's actually possible to see who has voted, not what they voted though. This is, however, often turned off so that it's really strictly anonymous. In that case, you cannot see who's voted either. After the election is finished, it will be possible to generate reports. Not before. You can see no results at all before the election is closed. And then who can see it? Well, of course, only authorized users can log into the program and see it. And they have to be authorized themselves. And of course, they also have to have the corresponding user rights to be allowed to do this for selected elections as well. So the authorized staff, what can they do? They can create a report to present this. You see some examples here. We have many different tables, charts, and so on, which they can use to present their results. They can also use we call it sub-reports, to filter the results, to be able to show a chart based on a background variable from which region the voter is, for instance. You can either present your results online, or you could export them to a PDF, a Word file, whatever type of presentation you would need. Speaking of exporting, of course, you can export your data, like your raw data, to other systems. You can use Excel, you can export it to SPSS if needed. It's also possible to fetch the information, fetch the answers from the database, not the respondents' informations. So from the database with an API, of course, an authentication is needed in that case as well. So a little bit about security. Already mentioned that authentication is needed in order to be able to vote and in order to be able to see the results after the election. The voter confirms the casting of their vote before they cast it, and they are able to verify that their vote is stored. The connection between the browser where the voter is voting and the database is encrypted. At the moment that the voter casts his vote, we break the connection between the voter and the vote. And the votes are also saved in a random order. All this guaranteeing that it's not possible to see who has casted which vote. Artisan, of course, uses secure coding and testing standards when developing and testing. When you rent the software, here at Artisan, you use it as software as a service. We have the data stored in a high security data center here in Sweden, actually here in Växjö. And our availability time is 99.9%. We are ISO 27001 certified. And with that, I'd like to move over to let you know a little bit about our licensing. The program is highly configurable. Like you saw before, for instance, when you create the ballot or the reports that you want to publish afterwards, you can do the design and decide what to present completely on your own. You don't need us for that. If you wish, the program has additional functions. You can see them here on the right side. The advanced server functionality, reporting functionality, and a connection via LDAP in case you would need more functions that the basic program offers. We can also, if you would say, well, that I'm missing, I would like to have that as well, we'd be happy to offer new functions for our customers. The system can be used or is used via the web. You reach us via the web, so it could be a regular computer or a tablet or a phone, as I said before. You install it on a web server. You can either rent it, then we install it here at Artisan, you use it as software as a service, or you can purchase the software, install it on your own server, on your web server. For the users and for the voters, the result is exactly the same. They don't notice the difference. The licensing, you can see here on the bottom, we base our licensing only on the number of elections you have ongoing simultaneously. So if you have one election going on this week, you have only one election going on, you need a light license. It doesn't matter how many voters you have in that election, if it's 1 or 20,000, it's just still a light license. So if you have one election this week or this month, you close it at the end of the month, next month you open a new one, well, still only need a light license. You can, of course, have multiple elections going on at the same time. In that case, you will need one of our larger licenses. This is a good thing, I think, lets you also arrange for test voting, for test elections. This means you can test your election this week, close it next week, start with your real election, still only need a light license. Well, the election cost for 20,000 voters, as I just mentioned, the 20,000 voters or the 40,000 or the one voter, we don't count that for licensing. In this case, if you have one election, it's just a light license. If you would choose software as a service, we host it here at Artisan, take care of everything for you, then it would be 80 euros a month. We charge 190 euros for the installation, but on top of that, you pay 80 euros a month. On the top right, you can see the option of purchase. If you purchase the license, it costs 750 euros, and you can use it forever and ever. We recommend that you go for a service agreement. That costs 150 euros a year. With that, you get technical support for free, and you also get access to new versions, upgrades, with new functions that we develop and release regularly. On the bottom left, you will see actually a special thing. It's one-time survey. If you know you're just going to have one single election, the time from start until end, you're finished, will be within 3 months. Well, you could also go for a one-time survey. It costs 450 euros and include any plugin you would need. Of course, we offer training and assistance. The program is so easy to use that actually a lot of our customers, they use the program without the need of a training, but we absolutely offer it. You can go for online training, like we do today. I'm showing you via shared screen. Or, of course, I could visit you or my colleagues so that our trainers would come to you and do face-to-face training. We also offer assistance with creation of ballots and reports, if needed.